Buckle up, because we're about to unpack a career that, well, let's just say it's anything but ordinary.
Definitely not your average 9 to 5, that's for sure.
Today, we're taking you on this shortcut to really get inside the mind of, this is fun, Professor Dirk J. Lehman.
Always exciting to see where these deep dives take us.
And the source material you've given us, wow, application documents for 2 universities, a personal vision statement. Someone serious about lifelong learning?
Someone's got that intellectual curiosity, that's for sure.
Right.
And the fact that it's Professor Lehman specifically, I'm sensing a theme here, right? Data, visualization, AI, all that good stuff.
It's like you're handing us this trail of breadcrumbs and saying, okay, show me what this Professor Lehman is really about.
And we do love a good academic mystery. So where do these breadcrumbs lead us? Straight into the heart of the German academic system, it seems.
Which, let's be honest, even for those of us who've spent, a bit of time in academia, it's got its quirks.
Quirks is putting it mildly, but that's what makes it interesting.
So his CV, it reads like one of those choose-your-own-adventure books. Universities, Hochschulen, research prizes, visiting professorships. It's a lot.
It's a career path with a serious sense of adventure. But that's what we'd expect from someone working at the cutting edge of AI and data visualization.
Okay, so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's lay some groundwork. What's the deal with this German academic system? What do we need to know to even begin to unpack this guy's CV?
Well, let's start with a word that'll make most PhD students break out in a cold sweat: habilitation.
Oh yes, habilitation, the academic equivalent of climbing Mount Everest. Twice.
It's like earning a PhD, which is already no walk in the park, but then leveling up, right? More research, a bigger emphasis on teaching. Basically, proving you're ready to lead your own research empire. And guess what? Professor Lehman, he's got it.
So he's got the academic equivalent of a black belt in research. But then there's this whole other thing, right? He spent time at both universities and these. Hochschulen.
Ah, yes, the Hochschule. It's a bit different from a traditional university. Think of it like this. If universities are all about pushing the boundaries of theoretical knowledge, Hochschulen, they're all about taking that knowledge and applying it to the real world.
So it's less about living in the ivory tower and more about building bridges to the world outside.
Exactly. And Professor Lehman has experience on both sides of that bridge. He's been at a prestigious university like TU Dortmund and at Ostfalia, which is a Hochschule.
A true academic chameleon. He's comfortable in both worlds. But hold on, because there's this little detail in his CV that really caught my eye. He started giving lectures before it was even required of him. Like he was so eager to teach that he couldn't wait.
That's not something you see every day. It speaks to a genuine passion for sharing knowledge. He wasn't content with just doing the research. He wanted to inspire the next generation of thinkers.
So we've got Professor Lehman, the academic overachiever, who also happens to be a teaching enthusiast. That's a pretty impressive combo. But here's the thing. His CV, it's full of these little breadcrumbs that hint at a very different side to this guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And those breadcrumbs, they lead us down some fascinating paths.
Like the fact that he worked as a freelancer for a Swiss web development company while he was still a student. Talk about a side hustle.
That's our Professor Lehman, always pushing boundaries. And it doesn't stop there. This man was also a department head at a tech company. Unister Holding, to be precise. Not your typical academic career trajectory.
Not at all. He wanted to experience the real world, the business world firsthand. And then there's the international experience. Wow, this guy gets around. Visiting professor in Spain, guest professor in Austria, assistant professor in Kazakhstan.
That's more than just a few stamps and a passport. Each of those experiences represents a different academic culture, a different way of thinking, a different way of approaching problems.
Especially Kazakhstan, right. Talk about a change of pace.
It speaks to a certain intellectual fearlessness, wouldn't you say?
No.
A willingness to step outside his comfort zone and embrace new challenges.
So we've got this picture of Professor Lehman emerging, someone who thrives on new challenges, diverse experiences. He's like the academic equivalent of an explorer, always pushing boundaries, seeking new horizons. But what about the discoveries themselves? We've talked about his path, but what about the research he's actually doing?
And treasures he's unearthed along the way.
Exactly. Let's shift gears a bit and delve into the heart of Professor Lehman's research.
Now we're getting to the good stuff. And trust me, his publications, his project descriptions, they're a goldmine.
Okay, so let's break out the pickaxes and start digging. What are some of the specific projects that really get Professor Lehman fired up? What are the research nuggets that make him tick?
So we're digging into these research projects, and some of these titles, I'm not going to lie, they sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie. Semi-automatic classification of weather maps, visual gnostics.
He's definitely not afraid to think big, that's for
Yeah.
sure. And those titles, they hint at something really important about his work. This drive to make complex systems, complex data, understandable for everyone, not just other scientists.
Right, because what's the point of all this amazing research if nobody understands it? Okay, so let's break down a couple of these projects. First up, semi-automatic classification of weather maps. Is this like a superpowered weather app or something? What's the big idea here? It's way more sophisticated than your phone's weather app. Think about it. Meteorologists, they're dealing with massive amounts of data,
Yeah.
right? Satellite images, sensor readings. It's overwhelming. What Professor Lehman is doing is using AI to sift through all that data, find patterns that humans might miss. It's about giving experts better tools, not replacing them altogether.
Okay, so more accurate weather forecasts. Sign me up. All right, next one on the list, and this one is just fun to say, visual gnostics. It sounds like something out of Star Trek. What's the problem he's tackling with this one?
This project really gets at the heart of Professor Lehman's approach to AI. It's about bridging that gap between data, which can be incredibly complex, and human understanding. Remember those weather maps we were just talking about?
Hmm.
Now imagine trying to make sense of all those colors, those swirling patterns, if you're not a trained meteorologist.
My eyes would glaze over after about 5 seconds, I'll be honest.
Exactly. So visual gnostics is about developing new ways to visualize data, almost like a new kind of language, so that anyone can grasp the key insights, the important patterns, without needing a PhD.
It's like translating a foreign language, but instead of words, it's data. That's amazing. Okay, one more project I have to ask about. Blood flow clustering. Now, this one sounds a little less sci-fi, a little more, well, medical. What's the story here?
And this is a perfect example of how Professor Lehman's work transcends disciplines. He's taking his expertise in visualization and AI and applying it to medicine, specifically helping doctors perform something called virtual stenting.
Okay, I'm going to need you to back up for a second. Virtual stenting, what are we talking about here?
Right, sorry, jargon overload. So basically, a stent is a tiny tube that doctors use to reinforce a weakened blood vessel. And virtual means they're using computer simulations, 3D imaging, to plan and practice the procedure before they actually operate.
Gotcha. So it's like a high-tech dress rehearsal for brain surgery.
Exactly. And this is where blood flow clustering comes in. Professor Lehman has developed these algorithms that visualize blood flow patterns in 3D. So doctors can see exactly how the blood will move through the vessel after the stent is placed.
That's incredible. It's like giving surgeons X-ray vision for blood flow. And it all comes back to making the invisible visible, the complex understandable.
And empowering those surgeons to make the best possible decisions for their patients. And this user-centric design, it's not just limited to his individual research projects. It's at the very core of his vision for the future of AI, which, by the way, he outlines beautifully in his Selbstverständnis document.
Yes, the million-dollar word. We started to unpack this document earlier. You mentioned it's like a statement of his research philosophy, right? It's something you see in German academia.
Exactly. Think of it as a window into his core beliefs about what AI should be, what it can be.
So what's he saying? What's Professor Lehman's grand vision for the future of AI, and how does his work fit into all of that?
So we're trying to look into this crystal ball, right? Professor Lehman's Selbstverständnis document, it's like his roadmap for the future of AI. And it's a future he's actively trying to shape. One of the things that really struck me about this document is he acknowledges the elephant in the room. AI, it's here, it's changing everything, but he's not blindly optimistic.
Oh, absolutely not. There are definitely some big questions that need answering.
Exactly. He's really emphasizing that it's not enough to just build cool tech. We have to steer this AI transformation in the right direction. Minimize the harm, maximize the benefit, all that. It's a huge responsibility.
Like AI is a tool, right? And every tool can be used for good or bad. It's all about the craftsperson wielding it.
100%.
Yeah.
And Professor Lehman, he sees researchers like himself as those craftspeople.
And that leads us right into one of the most fascinating parts of this document, right? He lays out these two distinct ways he envisions AI fitting into our lives. On the one hand, you've got AI as this silent partner, almost invisible, just working in the background, making things run smoothly.
Optimizing systems, automating tasks, that kind of thing. And he gives some really compelling examples in the document, like AI quietly managing traffic flow in a city, or even, and this one blew my mind a little bit, helping doctors make more accurate diagnoses.
So AI is basically doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes so we can focus on, actually living our lives.
Precisely. But then he presents this other approach, which is almost the opposite. AI is a tool of empowerment, not about replacing human expertise, but augmenting it.
Okay, so instead of AI doing the thinking for us, it's giving us the tools to think better ourselves.
Exactly. And what's so brilliant, he connects this directly back to his own work.
Mhm.
The Visual Gnostics project, those weather maps we were talking about, even the blood flow visualizations for surgeons, it's all about making complex information accessible, giving people the power to make more informed decisions, even if they're not experts in that field.
It all ties together so well. It's this cohesive vision, and it's so clear that Professor Lehman, he's not just interested in building cool algorithms. He really cares about the human impact of this technology.
100%. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating.
We started with this crazy CV, this academic roadmap that took us from Germany to Kazakhstan, and we ended up talking about the future of AI, ethical considerations. It's been quite a ride.
A testament to Professor Lehman's wide-ranging interests, for sure, but also, let's be honest, your own intellectual curiosity. You're the one who brought us these documents. You're the one asking the insightful questions.
Well, that's what we do here at the Deep Dive, right? We dig deep, we ask the tough questions, but most importantly, we give you, our amazing listeners, the tools to keep exploring on your own. And trust me, when it comes to Professor Lehman, there's a lot more to discover.
We've just scratched the surface.
Exactly. So we've linked all the source documents in our show notes. Go check them out, do your own deep dive, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one uncovering the next groundbreaking insight. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and keep exploring.